Hi, my name's Tom Lonsborough and I'm the Ableton certified trainer here at Manchester Midi School. Just like to take you through some of my favourite additions and workflow enhancements in Ableton Live 9. Let's start with the newly designed browser over here on the left. So this replaces the button system that we had in previous versions of Live. Now I've got this two-tier system. There's a few more additions in this section. For example, Max for Live in fact ships with the Suite version, and in this menu over here on the right, for example, you can find Max audio effects that are not only those that have been created and shipped with the software, but also those that you might have made yourself in the Max for Live interface. So we'll come back to a couple of these other menu options in a moment. This lower section sort of replaces the file browser placeholders, the numbers 1, 2 and 3. And I suppose it also replaces the bookmarks list that you used to have in the header bar here, in that you can just add folders to this section, and it, for me, it's sped up my workflow somewhat. For example, if I wanted to add a folder, say I'm always looking for cowbell and block loops, I could just find it using any folders that I might have already created and just drag over into this section here. You can see I can just reorder those just by clicking and dragging. Or if I click on Add Folder, so let's add some full drum loops to that list there. I'm just going to open that, and again that just gets added. We can just reorder that if needs be. To remove, you can just right click and click on Remove from Sidebar. So I've just loaded up a project here that I'm working on. Just going to play a little bit of it. The tune drops at 33, but at the moment for me it's just a little bit sparse. So I'm going to use a couple of Live 9's new additions to help me out.
High-speed production.
I just want something else playing in this sort of 8 or 16 bar section. So I've come across a sample I really like here. Now at the moment it's not necessarily in the right key, but I'm not going to worry about that for the moment. I'm just going to drag and drop that into my arrangement. Also, I don't want it to seem like I've just used an audio sample out of a pack, which if I just leave it as it is and pitch it so that it is in fact in key, that will be apparent. So what I'm going to do is right click on the clip's title bar here, and there's 3 different options down here, new since Live 9. I can convert the piece of audio to drums on a new drum rack. I can convert monophonic material to a new MIDI track, or in this case, because that audio sample is chords, it's polyphonic material, I'm going to select Convert Harmony to New MIDI Track. What it'll do is it'll analyse the content of that and change it into a MIDI clip for me. Now, automatically, without me having to do anything, there's a grand piano that's been assigned to that. So if I just solo that new track that I've been given. That's really nice. I can now get rid of that audio sample that I had on there a moment ago. So the actual MIDI notes are going to need tweaking a little bit just so that they fall in the same key as my bass line. The first thing I'm going to do though is select a nice sound. So let me go back up to this very first option from the Browse menu on the left pane of the browser here. So this is where all my instrument racks are stored. And if I know what I'm looking for, then great. But if I'm not sure, you can just type in the first part of a search term up here and it'll bring up the relevant preset instrument racks which fit into that. And you'll notice that furthermore, new since Live 9, with these instrument racks, you can audition the sound before you actually load it up. So let me just get rid of that search term. If I wasn't entirely sure what type of sound I was looking for, but I knew I wanted to say, for example, synth keys, just click once and it gives me a little audition of how that instrument rack's going to sound. So I really like this one. So I'm just going to double click and replace the instrument that was on that track previously. So that's a really, really nice sound, and I've got The most important parameters here in the rack are assigned to the macro controls, so I can really start to shape the sound, which I'll do in a moment. So I've pitched the notes so that they are in the same key as my bass line. I've also quantized the notes to the nearest 16th. The original timing information contained in the audio file was just a little bit too lazy for the type of track that I'm writing. So I've quantized everything to the 16th, and in fact pitched individual notes as well, just so that the chords fit a little better with the scale that I'm working in bassline wise. The other thing that I've done is repeated the first bar, and then let it go for 2 bars thereafter. So in short, what that audio file has given me is a really nice starting point. Converting that to MIDI using the new harmony to MIDI function has given me a good starting point. I can then customize the type of sound or the type of instrument that I want to play that, and also fine tune the MIDI notes. Still needs a bit of work so that it fits in with the track a little better. So let me just solo this up. First up, let's take a look at the redesigned EQ8. You can see straight away it's got a built-in analyzer, which is really, really handy, rather than having to load a separate device. Where is it? Spectrum. Instead of having to load Spectrum, you've sort of got that built in. The other thing that I really like about the new EQ8 is the really aggressive low cut filter on there. So what I'm going to do is just remove everything that might in some way clash with my kick drum or the Poly 6 instrument that I've got on the bass. Also a big fan of the adaptive bandwidth. You can see as I'm changing the gain, the bandwidth will also change accordingly. And if you want to turn that behavior on or off, you can just use that button there. That's EQ8. Next up, I'm going to apply a bit of sidechain compression using the new slightly retweaked compressor. What I really like about the new compressor is this view here, which actually shows you incoming signal. You can then set a threshold to catch the exact transients that you want to catch, and then it shows you the amount of gain reduction that's going on here. So what I'm going to do is just open the sidechain, turn that on. I'm going to take the sidechain input from the drum rack that I have. Where's the kick drum? There we go. So you can see now that the compressor is listening to the kick drum. There's your classic view. This one's great for applying compression because you get to see exactly what's going on. So you can see it's starting to apply a bit of compression here because the knee's set to 6 decibels, but I'm just going to turn that down because I want a nice aggressive side chain on this sound. Let's just solo the kick as well, just to get this right. Next thing I'd like to do is show you how Live's new MIDI workflow enhancements have helped me develop this riff that I've come up with as sort of the main riff. So that's the original riff. using these tools, I've come up with this bit here and these next couple of bars as well. Just some nice little variations. So let me just solo that track. Just move over to session view. Here's the original riff. I'm just going to duplicate that clip down. And this one, I'm going to press this button, inv. And what this will do, it'll invert the MIDI notes to get sort of like a mirror image about a center point roughly here. So it takes the sort of middly pitch note, as it were, and just flips that over like this. So that's one variation. So here's the original. I'm just going to copy that clip down, the original clip, a second time. And this time, instead of inv, I'm going to press rev or reverse, and it just flips the MIDI notes so that these occur at the start of the bar and this will be at the end of the bar. What we need to do is just rejig the notes around a little bit. Let me just, there's the original. Let me just play. So I'm going to extend these notes out, first of all. And notice if I just zoom in a little bit, got continuous movement in between the 16th, and then once it snaps to the 16th, what you have to do is let your finger off the mouse and then click and drag again if you want that continuous movement. That's a nice little workflow enhancement. I'm just going to delete a couple of these notes. And again, what's happened is that reverse function has given me a good starting point, and then after a tiny bit of tweaking, we get something that's a bit more coherent and works. We've got two variations of the main theme. And then we've got the reverse. And then we've also got the inverted version of that as well. Just finally, for the notes box, I want to take a look at the last couple of new additions, the Legato and the duplicate loop button. So I've got a slight variation on the main riff here. I brought the decay time right down on the volume envelope of the synthesizer. Now what Legato does is it stretches out the length of each note to buffer up to the adjacent MIDI note, like I'm doing here, but obviously automatically for you. So either make sure you've got none of the MIDI notes or all of the MIDI notes selected and just hit Legato. You get that nice smooth legato feel rather than that more staccato-y feel. Last button I want to draw your attention to is this one, duplicate loop. And that will just immediately give you a carbon copy. So if the loop is 2 bars in length, it will suddenly become 4 bars in length. The second 2 bars will be populated by the exact same MIDI note material as in the first 2 bars. And this allows you to just write subtle variations over, rather than just looping around 2 bars. You've got a slight different variation now every 4 bars. Next, I'd like to show you the Consolidate to New Scene function. This is one of my favourite new functions in Live 9. It's great for deconstructing tracks in arrangement view back into clips in session view. And for example, you might have used something like Logic or Cubase or Reason to write your music, and if you export each individual instrument as a stem and import it into Ableton Live's arrangement view, this new function makes it really easy to then break down your music and perform it using Ableton Live. So I've just looped the arrangement around these 4 bars. So this is the selection of time that I'd like to consolidate to a new scene. going to go to the Create menu. I'm going to pick the option Consolidate Time to New Scene. Just hit Tab and go through to Session View. You can see here is my scene. And that will now just loop indefinitely for me. So I've just taken 4 bars then from somewhere a little closer to the introduction. So you can see how easy it is to start to break down your song into perhaps 4 or 8 bar or 16 bar phrases, or perhaps something slightly bigger like verse, chorus, etc., etc. Users of Live 8 will notice slightly different behaviour if we want to jump back to what has been recorded in our arrangement. First of all, the back to arrangement button has moved. So if I press that, then we'll go back to what's recorded in the arrangement. But you'll notice that new to Live 9, you've got the ability to be able to start to introduce one track at a time back into the arrangement using these buttons here. Hit the back to arrangement and it just completes all of that for you. So I've just soloed the instrument that I added towards the start of this video. I'd just like to show you some of the improvements to the way that we can add automation to this sound. First of all, we can record on the fly session view clip automation. Now to do this, you need to make sure that this button is on, that this button is on, which is a session view arm. And that sort of almost replaces the overdub button that used to be in the control bar. You can see when it's off, the MIDI clip isn't receiving incoming MIDI signals. Now it is. And now I can use my attached MIDI controller to record in some automation onto this clip. What we actually find is that any session view automation, once we transport that clip over into the arrangement view, I just drag and drop that there, immediately becomes arrangement automation automatically. So that's really quite a handy function. Let's just go back a minute. I'm just going to delete that. If we don't have a MIDI controller handy, we can still program in automation onto this clip by first of all selecting the device, then the parameter in that device using the 2 chooser boxes. So let's go for decay. And now we just single click to place breakpoints, and then we can move those breakpoints like we could do in previous versions of Live. And likewise, rather than having to press Command B, we just press B to go into draw mode, making use of the pencil tool. We also just single click to remove breakpoints as well when we're using the pointer. So it's just another little small workflow enhancement to speed up the creation of automation envelopes. And finally, I'm just going to go back to my arrangement, and on the master track, just unsolo that. On the master track, I've got Live's new glue compressor device across the output. So it's modelled on an old SSL bus compressor, and it sounds absolutely amazing. My 2 favourite aspects of the compressor is the ability to add this sort of analog soft clip. So once you push the makeup gain past a certain point, it starts to clip and gives you a really nice sort of gritty sound. The other thing that I really like is this dry wet control. So obviously when it's round to dry, there's no compression on the go. All the way around to wet, and all we're hearing is compressed signal. Somewhere in the middle, and it's like parallel compression, where we're still getting the original transients poking through, but we get the nice thickening aspect of adding compression as well. So parallel compression all done on one track, which is really handy. So those are my favourite new features of Live 9.